Recent events across Spain, once celebrated for its progressive social policies and vibrant multiculturalism, have shaken the nation's image of social harmony, revealing fault lines that demand immediate attention. The narrative of peaceful coexistence is being challenged. From Catalonia, a region known for its distinct identity and cultural heritage, to Murcia, a city in southeastern Spain with a significant immigrant population, mosques, symbols of faith and community, and immigrant communities, vital contributors to Spain's economy and cultural fabric, have faced violence, a stark departure from the country's traditionally tolerant stance, and intimidation, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty among vulnerable populations, raising urgent questions about rising extremism and the forces that are fueling it. These attacks are not isolated. They represent a disturbing trend. They signal deeper tensions within Spanish society, exposing underlying prejudices and anxieties, threatening Spain's values of coexistence and challenging its commitment to inclusivity. Organized anti-immigrant riots, fueled by misinformation and hate speech and targeted assaults, often carried out with impunity, suggest a coordinated effort, a deliberate attempt to destabilize communities and incite hatred by fringe groups to sow division and undermine the principles of equality and respect. The voices of Muslim communities, often marginalized and unheard, local residents and officials paint a grim picture of escalating tensions and growing fear, reveal the profound impact of this hostility, highlighting the urgent need for intervention and support. Social media, a powerful tool for communication and connection, political opportunism, where divisive rhetoric is often used to gain votes, and far-right agitation, which seeks to exploit anxieties and prejudices, fuel this surge, creating a dangerous cycle of hatred and violence, making it a national crisis that demands a comprehensive and immediate response. Understanding these intersecting forces, the complex web of factors contributing to this crisis, is crucial to grasping the scale of the problem and developing effective solutions. As we examine these events, delving into the root causes and the consequences, we confront uncomfortable truths about the state of Spanish society. About Islamophobia, its prevalence and its devastating impact, and xenophobia, the fear and hatred of foreigners, as real destructive forces that threaten the very fabric of Spanish society. Yet amid fear and provocation, in the face of rising intolerance, calls for unity and reason, for dialogue and understanding, offer hope for a more resilient, inclusive Spain, a nation where diversity is celebrated and all residents feel safe and valued. Nestled in Piera, a quiet town not far from the bustling city of Barcelona, a newly constructed mosque became the target of a devastating act of hate. It was deliberately set ablaze just days before its grand opening, a moment eagerly anticipated by the local faithful. The timing of the attack suggests a calculated effort to maximize the pain and fear inflicted upon the community. For the local Muslim community, this was far more than just a property loss. It was a deeply personal and targeted attack, striking at the very heart of their faith, their sense of belonging, and their feeling of safety within their own community. This act sought to undermine their place in society. Catalonia's main Muslim organizations swiftly and strongly condemned the arson, denouncing it as a premeditated act, carefully planned to inflict maximum emotional damage and sow seeds of discord. The incident has understandably heightened fears and anxieties among Muslims, who now, with heavy hearts, see their places of worship, once sanctuaries of peace, as potentially vulnerable targets for further acts of hatred. The attack in Piera is not an isolated event. It is a deeply troubling part of a disturbing trend of intolerance that is, unfortunately, gaining ground in Spain and across Europe. A mosque is far more than just a building constructed of brick and mortar. It's the very heart of a community, a place of solace, gathering, and spiritual nourishment. Burning it is not just destruction of property, it's an assault on identity, safety, and the right to practice one's faith freely. The charred remains of the mosque now stand as a grim and stark reminder, a painful symbol of the persistence of prejudice and hate lurking beneath the surface of Spain's otherwise modern and progressive image. As investigations continue, the community, both Muslim and non-Muslim, faces profoundly hard questions. Questions about the future of intercommunal relations, about building bridges of understanding, and about ensuring that such acts of hate never happen again. In San Javier, Murcia, another mosque was rocked by a pre-dawn explosion. The blast caused significant damage, but it was the graffiti, "Death to Islam," that revealed the attacker's intent. This was not just vandalism, but a direct threat meant to terrorize the Muslim community. Local officials and residents swiftly condemned the attack, standing in solidarity with their Muslim neighbors. Their unified response sent a clear message: hate would not divide the town. For the Muslim community, however, the violation of their sanctuary left deep scars and a lingering sense of vulnerability. The mosque, once a place of solace, became a symbol of the prejudice they face. The memory of the explosion and hateful message remains a stark reminder of the need for vigilance and unity. In Torre Pacheco, Murcia, simmering tensions erupted into 3 nights of violence. Organized far-right groups targeted young men of North African origin, turning the town into a zone of fear. Authorities arrested 8 people, uncovering a disturbing level of coordination behind the riots. Interior Minister Grange blamed far-right agitators and incendiary rhetoric from parties like Vox. Online groups such as Deport Them Now incited violence, translating digital hate into real-world attacks. Most rioters were outsiders with criminal records, confirming this was a planned campaign, not a local uprising. The events exposed how extremist ideologies, amplified online, can manifest as organized street violence. For Torre Pacheco, the riots shattered community peace and revealed the dangers of unchecked hate. The digital world is now a front line in the battle against extremism. Social media platforms have become breeding grounds for hate, where groups like Deport Them Now coordinate real-world violence. The riots in Torre Pacheco were fueled by online incitement, showing the direct pipeline from digital rhetoric to physical attacks. Echo chambers amplified divisive narratives, radicalizing followers and normalizing hostility. Subtle hate speech online erodes tolerance, making extremist ideas seem mainstream. Authorities struggle to police this digital frontier, reacting to threats rather than preventing them. The challenge is to disrupt the ecosystem of hate through better moderation, digital literacy and counter-narratives. The fight against extremism is increasingly fought on our screens as much as on our streets. Examining the data, we begin to understand the true scale of the issue. Numbers don't lie, and in this case they paint a concerning picture of the challenges faced by Muslim communities. These figures reveal the extent of Spain's ongoing challenge with hate speech and xenophobia, highlighting the urgent need for comprehensive solutions. It's a complex issue deeply rooted in societal biases. Looking back to early 2023, we see a disturbing trend: attacks targeting Muslims. These incidents were not isolated, but rather part of a larger pattern of discrimination. Startlingly, these attacks made up nearly a quarter of all documented online hate speech, demonstrating the prevalence of anti-Muslim sentiment in the digital sphere. And the situation only worsened, with this percentage rising to 26% by the spring of that year. This upward trend is deeply concerning and demands immediate attention. What's particularly alarming is that a quarter of young Spaniards, the future of the nation, openly identify as xenophobic or racist, according to recent surveys. This suggests a deeply ingrained problem that needs to be addressed through education and awareness campaigns. This data suggests that intolerance is not just a fringe issue confined to extremist groups, but rather a significant undercurrent within Spanish society. These numbers paint a clear picture. Hostility toward Muslims is not an isolated phenomenon, but a growing concern that needs to be confronted head-on. It's a widespread societal problem that affects not only individuals, but also the overall social fabric of Spain. We must acknowledge the systemic nature of this issue. These are not just isolated incidents, they are symptoms of a deeper societal malaise that requires a comprehensive and sustained response. The proliferation of online hate creates an environment where prejudice festers and grows, ultimately leading to a climate where physical attacks feel justified, even encouraged, by those who harbour hateful ideologies. These statistics serve as a stark warning sign, urging us to take immediate action before the situation deteriorates further. This highlights the urgent need to address not only the violent acts themselves, but also the underlying ideological roots that fuel such hatred and discrimination. It's important to remember that the vast majority of Spaniards do not hold such views and actively promote inclusivity and respect for all. Therefore, the fight for tolerance, understanding, and mutual respect is far from lost, and there is still hope for a more inclusive future. Ultimately, the data underscores the critical importance of acknowledging and addressing these issues. We must confront prejudice head-on, challenge discriminatory attitudes, and work towards meaningful social change before these biases become even more deeply entrenched in society. Spain's recent violence must be seen in a broader European context. Islamophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment are EU-wide issues, with half of Muslims in the EU reporting discrimination. Yet Spain and Italy have some of the lowest levels of racial discrimination in Europe, compared to countries like Austria and Germany. This suggests Spain's problem is less about widespread societal hate and more about a vocal, organized, far-right fringe. The recent attacks are the work of a dangerous minority, not a reflection of majority sentiment. This context offers hope. Spain's social fabric remains more resilient than in many EU countries. The challenge is to prevent extremist groups from poisoning this relative harmony. Spain's relationship with Islam is shaped by centuries of shared history. For nearly 800 years, Al-Andalus was a center of cultural and scientific achievement under Muslim rule. The Reconquista ended this era, becoming a foundational story for Spanish identity, one sometimes exploited by nationalists and extremists. Today, far-right groups invoke the Reconquista to frame immigration as a new invasion. This historical legacy is double-edged. Al-Andalus can inspire pride in multiculturalism, but the Reconquista narrative fuels division. Recent attacks tap into these old symbols, seeking to reawaken ancient animosities. Understanding this context is key to countering the narratives extremists exploit. Amid violence and division, voices for peace and unity have emerged. Leaders like Bishop José Manuel Lorca Planes have called for solidarity with Muslim communities, rejecting cycles of violence. Spain's response to past tragedies like the 2004 Madrid bombings showed resilience and a refusal to succumb to hate. The challenge now is to summon that same spirit, resisting provocations designed to divide. The answer is not to blame entire communities, but to isolate extremists and strengthen social bonds. Spain's future lies in embracing convivencia, coexistence, not resurrecting old conflicts. The attacks in Piera, San Javier and Torre Pacheco are a warning, but also a call to action for all who value tolerance. Only by standing together can Spain ensure its future is defined by peace, not hatred.